Welcome back, everybody, to Sports on Tap. Again, Ed Dick here alongside Rob Troutman and Josh Jeffy and Sean Duffy. Our apologies. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, as tends to happen sometimes in the virtual space that we live in for the most part now. But we are back. As you can see, we have the wonderful PowerPoint that Sean Duffy put together for us to talk about the Week 6 matchups and the Week 7 schedule. So without further ado, let's get to it right now. Josh Jeffy with the Greater Cleveland Conference.
All right, thanks, Ed. And again, we apologize and appreciate everyone for sticking around. We're going to have to hire ourselves some new technical IT guys here. Obviously, paying nothing is bad, so we'll have to pay something next time. But we're going to start off Week 6 in the GCC. I actually didn't have much on this game, but Solon came away with a 48-29 victory over the Twinsburg Tigers. Solon improves to 4-2 in this game. Twinsburg drops to 1-5. Really, the Cleveland.com had a little blurb about this game in their how the top 25 fared. E.J. Taylor did ball out in this game, the running back for the Comets, 3 touchdowns in this one. Along with Joel Capasso and Brian McQuaid, the 2 receivers, each caught themselves a touchdown in this one, as Solon comes away with a 48-29 victory over the Twinsburg Tigers. This was actually a really good game. Cleveland Heights, who will be joining the GCC next year, came away with a 56-28 victory over the Strongsville Mustangs. Strongsville drops to 2-4 on the year. Cleveland Heights improves to 6-0. Now, this game was very close in the first half. Nolan Beard for the Mustangs came out firing, 18 of 29, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. The offense for the Tigers were also on fire. They had over 300 yards of rushing in the first half, but at the half, it was only 35-28 in this one. But second half was a different story. The Mustang defense could not stop Cleveland Heights quarterback Darion Fair, especially in the running attack for him. He totaled in this game 274 yards of rushing on 17 carries. He had 4 touchdowns. The rushing attack for the Tigers was on point in this one. Marquise Davis added 7 carries, 164 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Owen Bisker added 13 carries for 78 yards. The second half of the game, it was just all Tigers. Nolan Beard could not remake his positive play from the first half. And in the second half, and give credit to the Tigers defense, they kept Nolan Beard to only 4 of 11 passing for only 14 yards. In this game, Cleveland Heights totaled over 500 yards of offense, and they really pulled away in the second half. 56-28, the final score on that one. Once again, Strongsville drops to 2-4 on the year. The Medina Air Bees are back, ladies and gentlemen, and they came away with a conference win against Euclid, 48-7. Medina improves to 5-1 on the year. They notched their first conference victory. Euclid drops to 0-6. They are 0-2 in GCC play. Danny Stoddard in this one was 25 of 41 for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions in this game, but that's okay. We'll take the 4 touchdown. Austin Knowles was the leading man in this game, 6 receptions, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Brendan Schramm added 8 receptions for 96 yards. Carlos Corchado, 3 receptions, 81 yards. And finally, Jack Wojak, 6 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown in this one. The defense, though, for the Bees did pave a way for them a couple scoring plays. Talon Hulvey, 2 fumble recoveries for touchdowns in this game, one from 31 yards and the other from 76 yards out. The only score for the Euclid Panthers was Isaiah Mock. He had one of those Danny Stoddard interceptions. He returned that for a pick 6 and a score. But that was pretty much the only positives from the Euclid Panthers in this game. Now, I want to, real quick, if I can, let me get some of these stats up. I'd like to thank Athletic Director from the Bees, Todd Hopke, from passing over these stats just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of season the Bees are having, Danny Stoddard being one of them. On the season so far, he has passed. Now, granted, this is 6 games. He has passed for just under 2,400 yards, 27 touchdown passes, only 5 interceptions. Danny Stoddard has added almost 300 yards rushing as well with 4 touchdowns. Now, for the Air Bees, there are 4 receivers with 25 25 receptions or more. Austin Knowles leading the way, 775 yards, 10 touchdowns. Brennan Schramm follows shortly behind that, 763 yards and 7 touchdowns. Jack Wojcik is adding 435 yards, 4 touchdowns, and Carlos Corchado also has 338 yards, 4 touchdowns. So just some incredible offensive passing numbers by the Medina Airbees. So I just wanted to give that out there. Once again, Medina improves to 5-1. They are 1-0 in the conference. Euclid drops to 0-6. They are 0-2 in the conference. We're going to save the Mentor Brunswick game because that was our featured game of the week. We'll get to that after our interview with Rocco Conti. And it was a good game like we thought it might be. But up until now, Ed, we'll toss it back to you. That is it for week 6 in the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Sounds great, Josh. What do we got on tap for week 7?
Oh, yeah, that would be helpful. Appreciate that. Austintown Fitch will travel to Strongsville, take on the Mustangs. Erie Cathedral Catholic out of Pennsylvania will travel to Euclid. And we have 2 conference games. Brunswick will travel to Solon, and Mentor will travel to Medina. My G&G Fitness player of the week, no spoilers, is going to go to Jacob Snow of the Mentor Cardinals. We will talk about why when we get into the featured game of the week. Also in consideration was Medina defensive back Talon Hulvey, who did recover 2 fumbles, 4 touchdowns in the game against Euclid. But I went with Jacob Snow. We'll talk about why a little bit later on. Appreciate that.
All right, very good, Josh. Thank you very much. We'll catch up more on the GCC here in a little bit when we go through the SOT featured game of the week. For now, let's keep moving. Rob Schraubman's going to handle the Southwestern Conference for week 6.
All right, thanks, Ed. And first for week 6 in the Southwestern Conference, it was North Ridgeville traveling to Avon. And Avon, they really came out firing on all cylinders in this game. And it was early and often as Avon quarterback Sam DiTilio, he threw for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first half of this game. It was Avon running back Jacorian Caffey. He didn't play in this game, but it was other players for the Avon offense that really stepped up. And 49 seconds into the game, DiTillion hit Cam Santee for a 42-yard touchdown. Then after a long run by DiTilio, they set up senior running back Gavin Earhart, who came on our show and talked to us earlier in the season. He scored from 8 yards out. And then Avon wide receiver Ethan Holbrook, he had a night. 6 passes, 152 yards and a touchdown. This one was all Avon, 63-7 your final score. Avon improves to 5-1. North Ridgeville falls to 4-2. Midview at Avon Lake, and last year Midview they did shock the Shoremen by beating them, and this year it would be a little bit different as Avon Lake quarterback Jeremy Disick and running back Wade Nelson each had 3 touchdowns apiece for the Shoremen. Avon Lake's offense, they had 510 yards of total offense as Avon Lake has won 2 straight. The Shoreman running back Wade Nelson finished with 91 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 66-yard touchdown run. And Avon Lake quarterback Jeremy Disick had 246 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Wide receiver Matthew Stewie had 7 catches, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Midview offense, they struggled most of the night in this game. They only totaled 131 yards of total offense. And give credit to the Avon Lake defense. They really did get the job done. They win big, 56-7. Avon Lake now 5-1. Midview drops to 2-4. This was a good one. Elyria at Olmsted Falls, and Elyria they led 14-13 in the third quarter with 2:20 left. And we've seen this from Elyria a few times this year where they have leads into the fourth quarter and just can't hold on. And this was, again, another one of those nights. And an incredible night, though. Let's give credit to running back of the Elyria Pioneers, Lance Glover Jr., who had rushed for 175 yards and a touchdown. Jazeer Lucky for Elyria. He had 92-yard touchdown in the third quarter that put them up 14-13. But then Olmsted Falls quarterback Jimmy Rosel, he would hit wide receiver Gavin Moore for 49 yards, and that set up Rocco Conti's second touchdown of the game. It was 19-14 Bulldogs in this game. Then give credit to the Bulldog safety Jack Pinchek. He came up with a huge fourth quarter interception that led to a Rocco Conti third score of the game. And a huge win for Olmsted Falls is they wouldn't let Elyria get back into this one. 25-14 your final. Olmsted Falls 5-1 on the year. Elyria drops to 2-4 after hanging tough with Olmsted Falls and Avon and falling in the fourth quarter. Olmsted Falls wide receiver Michael Kandow, he had 2 catches for 86 yards. And lastly, Amherst at Berea-Midpark, and the Titans running back Hudson Devon, he broke the single game rushing record by the Titans running back for 256 yards. Listen to this, on 9 carries. I have no idea. I mean, that's incredible to me. 9 carries, 256 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He also had 9 tackles on defense, and he was a runner-up for the SWC Player of the Week. They win big. Berea-Midpark 48, Amherst 7. Berea-Midpark is now 500-3-3. Amherst 0-6 on the season. My G&G Fitness SWC Player of the Week is Olmsted Falls running back Rocco Conti, who will be on our show at the 8:15 mark. And he had 168 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, and just a huge win against a very good Elyria team and defense in a 24-15 win. So Rocco Conti will be on, and he is my SWC Player of the Week. The Week 7 schedule in the SWC, Avon Lake at 5-1 travels to 0-6 Amherst. And Avon Lake, they've been playing pretty much lights out since that Avon loss. Berea-Midpark 3-3, they'll take on the Midview Middies at 2-4, and this is a rivalry game and should be a pretty good matchup, as it's always tough to win in Midview. Elyria 2-4, they'll take on North Ridgeville 4-2. They'll host the Pioneers. North Ridgeville with back-to-back losses. Can they get back their winning ways? And Avon 5-1. This is a big one. They'll take on Olmsted Falls 5-1. Avon's only loss to Glenville, and Olmsted Falls, their only losses to Chardon. So both losses by both teams are against very good teams. So that should be an absolute great matchup. And that's the Southwestern Conference.
Rob, great work as always, and we'll obviously get more into some Southwestern Conference action when we meet with our guest, Rocco Conti, senior running back from Olmsted Falls, going to be joining us here in about 20 minutes live on the show here. All right, let's keep this train moving. We have the Suburban League with my cohort, my compadre, my colleague, Sean Duffy. Let's get it rolling.
Thank you, Ed. Back from my second 2-0 versus COVID, so let's see if I can go 2-0 and make myself undefeated here getting in these recaps. We start off, as we always do, in the American Division, and in a game that was tighter than most fans wanted, Aurora had to rely on the last-second field goal by Dom Trevisano to complete the comeback and get a 31-30 victory over Talmadge. Aurora's quarterback Matt Geyer finished 9 of 15 for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aurora running back Alex Tenorio, 22 carries and 146 yards on the night. The late second comeback spoiled yet another gem by Talmadge quarterback Ty Hurst, who finished 17 of 26 with 314 yards and 4 touchdowns and 1 lone interception in the game. Talmadge wide receiver and Wisconsin commit, boy, could they have used him Saturday night. 9 catches, 210 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the night, but it wasn't enough as Aurora gets a come-from-behind last-second win, 31-30 over Talmadge. Barberton gets back on the winning ways with a 34-7 victory on the road at Revere. Barberton running back Xavier Macon had 8 carries and 132 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night, while Barberton's wide receiver Kenneth Larry had 3 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown, and Barberton quarterback Dominic Wilson went 7 of 12 for 115 yards and a touchdown pass. Revere quarterback Brandon Reed scored the lone touchdown for the Minutemen on a quarterback sneak for 1 yard. Barberton wins 34-7 over Revere. Cuyahoga Falls traveled in to take on Copley, and Copley exercised some demons on Cuyahoga Falls. Copley quarterback DeJuan Owens, a previous G&G Fitness Player of the Week for the Suburban League and a runner-up this week, went 10 of 17 for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, he also carried the ball 9 times for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. So count them. He had 5 touchdowns on the night and almost 200 yards of rushing. He rushed more than he passed in this game as the Magic go on. I'm sorry, as the Indians win 54-14. Copley wide receivers Rahantonio Childs and Trent Winiger also had a touchdown reception. Cuyahoga Falls, Alex Golden, did score 2 touchdowns for the Black Tigers, but it was not enough to overcome the Copley offense. My final for the American Division saw Highland travel into Kent Roosevelt, and a football game was played. Highland completely dominates Kent Roosevelt, 69-0. A couple of great stats out of this. It was an all rushing attempt, pretty much an all rushing effort for the Hornets, as they averaged 10.9 yards per carry and almost 400 yards rushing in the game. They were led by who else? Lucas Stiles, who finished the night with 103 yards and a touchdown. Peyton Janikas also had 70 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a plethora of other running backs for Highland also scored on the night in the 69-0 rout of Kent Roosevelt. Moving on to the National Division, the Bees, fresh off their big win, hosted Hudson, and a football game did occur there. Hudson came out of this one 45-0, blanking the Bees of Brecksville. Hudson running back Ian Ludwig had 18 carries for 219 yards and 4 touchdowns. Hudson's defense only allowed 143 yards the entire game, most of that coming in the second half. Most of that coming after they held Brecksville to just 10 total yards in the first half. So you could see that maybe they had some reserves in the second half. But Hudson gets a big win to stay perfect on the season, 45-0 over Brecksville. In perhaps the shocking upset of the week, we saw Wadsworth, fresh off a really tough loss to Hudson, host Nordonia, and Wadsworth shocks Nordonia 41-14 to give the Knights their first loss of the season. Wadsworth's defense was suffocating, pitching a shutout until late into the fourth quarter when it was clear that Wadsworth was in control of the game. Wadsworth quarterback Will Stack finished 10 of 18 for 156 yards passing, 113 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns on the night. Wadsworth running back Kyle Figueroa, 134 yards total and a rushing touchdown. Will Stack is my G&G Fitness Player of the Week. Just given the fact after coming off a heartbreaking loss to turn in that type of performance against a really great defense in Nordonia. Again, this was neck and neck for me because I could have easily picked the Wadsworth defense, who held Nordonia completely in check for the majority of this night until it was, reserves in at the end of the game. In fact, Nordonia only scored touchdowns in the last quarter when it was the reserves on reserves. But again, Wadsworth gets the big 41-14 victory in week 6. Stowe traveled in to take on North Royalton, and man, Stowe is having a rough go of it right now as they drop one 28-11 to North Royalton. The Bears did get two TDs from Cody Miller. The Bulldogs could only muster a punt block touchdown from Teddy Gregory and a 32-yard field goal by David Broadgrammer. I think I really do think that they made that up so that I would stumble over that.
Good effort. Good effort, Sean. Good effort.
Yeah, just trying my best to get that one out. But North Royalton gets back on the winning side of the ledger, 28-11 over Stowe. The final game, as Josh mentioned in his breakdown, was Solon hosting Twinsburg. Not much to say for Twinsburg here. Quincy Newsom did score 2 touchdowns on the night for them. But the Tigers were just no match for Solon. And again, we talk about this because Solon's joining the National Division. Next year, this will be one of our in-division games. So that's all for the division. As I mentioned, my G&G Fitness Player of the Week nominee is Will Stack, the quarterback of Wadsworth. Looking ahead to Week 7 in the American Division, Aurora travels to take on Kent Roosevelt. Copley will travel to take on Barberton. Cuyahoga Falls travels to take on Talmadge, see if Talmadge can recover from that tough loss to Aurora. And Revere will travel in to take on the Hornets of Highland. In the National Division, Hudson travels to take on Nordonia, and that's actually a more interesting game now, given how Nordonia fell to Wadsworth in Week 6. Twinsburg travels to take on North Royalton. Wadsworth will travel in to take on Stowe. And the Bees travel outside the conference or outside the division to take on Benedictine on October 1st. Guys, that's all I got for the Suburban League. Ed, back to you, my friend.
Sean, you had a little Keith Jackson there in the National Division. That was pretty good.
In the National Division.
That was sounded like Keith Jackson.
You steal from those that you admire, right?
Right. That's right. Sean, great job with the Suburban League. As always, we'll potentially revisit some of the Suburban League because that did cause probably the biggest shakeup in the Power 10 coming up here later with our rankings. All right, so let's get to it here. The Great Lakes Conference, the East and the West Division. We now are in conference play finally for the Great Lakes Conference after multiple weeks of non-conference play and crossover play. So let's start. The Buckeye Bucks took on the Parma Redmen. This game was played at Byers Field on Thursday night. For Buckeye, it was fullback Gage Nagy had 14 rushes for 64 yards and 3 touchdowns, covering 19, 2, and 6 yards. Running back Troy McCann had 94 yards on 18 rushes for the Bucks. Quarterback Casey Murray was 4 of 8 passing for 85 yards and a touchdown. He also added 25 more yards on the ground and another touchdown. Wide receiver Zach Onorati had 65 yards off of 3 receptions and a touchdown. Buckeye forced 4 turnovers, including a fumble recovery for a touchdown by Ranger Metter. Buckeye gets the 42-12 victory over the Redmen. For Parma, it was quarterback Nick Mankins. He had 17 of 16 completed passes for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 interceptions. He had 57 yards on 9 rushes. Wide receiver Terry Robinson caught 5 passes for 65 yards and both of the touchdowns from Mankins. With the win, Buckeye improves to 5-1 overall. They are 2-0 in conference play. Parma remains winless at 0-6 overall, 0-2 in conference play. Also played Thursday night. This game was played at North Royalton. The Lakewood Rangers traveled to North Royalton to take on the Holy Name Green Wave. Running back for the Green Wave, it was running back Christian Sanchez. Up until this point, the reigning defending Great Lakes Conference Player of the Week nominee. He backed that up with 197 more yards off of 18 rushes and 2 more touchdowns. Austin Wondolowski for the Green Wave had 9 rushes for 53 yards and a touchdown. Prior Sports on Tap guest, quarterback Javon Williams, he was quiet today, and he really didn't have to do too much in this game because of how good Wondolowski and Sanchez and the offensive line did. But he had 6 of 14 passing for 71 yards and a touchdown. He also had 62 yards off of 9 rushes for a touchdown as well. Colin Dockich caught a touchdown pass for the Green Wave as well. Holy Name gets a 32-2 victory over the Lakewood Rangers. Holy Name improves to 3-2 overall, 2-0 in conference play. Lakewood drops to 2-4 overall. They're 0-2 in conference play. Valley Forge took on the Normandy Invaders in a crosstown battle of Parma supremacy. And Valley Forge took no prisoners on the Invaders here. For the Patriots, it was Danny Kewell. He had 17-yard rushing touchdown. Soldier Williams scored from 18 yards out. He added 5 rushes for 14 yards. Shane Warden had 18 rushes for 157 yards and 4 touchdowns for the Patriots. Valley Forge rushed for over 400 yards in this contest, and they held Normandy to a total of 157. Valley Forge, they have their way with Normandy, 49-6. With the win, Valley Forge improves their record to 4-2 overall, 1-1 in conference play. Normandy falls to 4-2 overall. They are also 1-1 in conference play. Moving over to the West Division, North Olmsted took on Westlake. North Olmsted gets a 42-8 victory over the Demons. It was senior do everything, running back, free safety, receiver, punt returner, whatever you want to do, he does it all. And former guest on our show, Jared Kelly.
Who, Ed? Who is that? Say it loud.
Jared Kelly rushed for 128 yards on 12 carries. He had 77 yards on 3 receptions. That's 205 yards total for those of you adding up at home. He had 3 more total touchdowns. His senior season continues to be stellar. for the Eagles. North Olmsted quarterback Xavier Balson hit Colin Willard for 2 more passing touchdowns for the Eagles. For Westlake, sophomore quarterback Sam Brucheri, he completed 23 of 38 passes for 179 yards. No touchdowns. He did get picked off twice. Junior Caden Cole was the big receiver for the Demons. He had 11 catches for 104 yards. North Olmsted had 457 total yards, including 269 on the ground, 128 of which belonged to the aforementioned Jared Kelly. And they held Westlake to just under 200 yards as well. Tell you what, these Eagles are on a roll right now. 42-8 victory for over Westlake. North Olmsted is now 4-2 overall. They are 2-0 in conference play. Westlake drops to 3-3 overall. They're 0-2 in conference play. What a game! But another tremendous game from Jared Kelly and also Xavier Balson. Those two, when you talk about North Olmsted and their offense, as far as who gets the headlines, those two are hand in hand. But as we talked to Coach Brediger, lots of credit goes to that offensive line and that defense as well. Moving on, Elyria Catholic took on Fairview. As Sean would like to say, a game was played, and Elyria Catholic did most of the damage here. Levi Ellis, the perpetual Player of the Week nominee, he rushed for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns, covering 18, 42, and 32 yards to lead the Panthers. Hector Garcia got his first start of the season, and he threw an 80-yard touchdown pass to former starting quarterback Brady Cook, and also had a 33-yard touchdown pass to Mason Halliburton. Elyria Catholic gets a 42-7 victory over Fairview. Got a couple of stats from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram here. Ellis is now third all-time in school history in rushing yards. He just eclipsed the 4,000-yard mark. He has 4,005 yards total rushing in his 4-year career so far with the Panthers. What a tremendous season he is having, tremendous career so far. He is 78 yards away from taking over second place. What was really cool, what Coach Fox mentioned this in the post game, is that Levi Ellis's running mate, Tavian Thomas, he asked Coach Fox to give his running back reps to Ellis so Ellis can get to the 4,000-yard mark more quickly. That just goes to show, how good of a great teammate that Tavian is. But everyone's happy. It's truly a team effort. I think Levi Ellis would be the first one to tell you that as well. So lots of unselfishness for the Panthers there. Tavian Thomas is a great running back in his own right. He gets most of his notoriety on the defensive end. But just a great teamwork there as well. With the win, Elyria Catholic moves to 5-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference. Fairview falls to 1-5 overall, 0-2 in the conference. The last game, this was a great game. Rocky River took on Bay, and a great game by Rocky River. Rocky River junior quarterback Julian Patty completed 10 of 14 passes for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. Senior running back Zach Wilson had 58 yards on 12 carries for a touchdown. Former GLC Player of the Week from last year, wide receiver and kicker Mac Masad. He had two receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown. And junior wide receiver Ryan Rickety had 2 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. And then Rocky River sophomore Josh Mammers, he had 15 tackles. He was all over the place. They brought it to within 22-21 with less than 2 minutes left in the game, but they cannot convert the point after attempt. And with that, Rocky River gets a very hard-fought 22-21 victory over the Bay Rockets. Rocky River wins their second game. They are now 2-4 overall, 1-1 in conference play. Bay falls to 3-3 overall. They are also 1-1 in conference play. We're starting to see Rocky River kind of put it together here after a rough non-conference start. I don't believe Johnny Beebe played in this game. I didn't see his name on any of the stat sheets. So the fact that Rocky River is able to get a good victory over a quality Bay team without one of their unquestioned leaders really speaks to the resiliency of the Pirates that Coach Josh Wells has going on over there. So a great win for Rocky River there. The G&G Fitness Equipment Player of the Week For the Great Lakes Conference nominee, it will be Buckeye fullback Gage Nagy. He had 3 touchdowns on 14 rushes, a total of 64 yards. So congratulations to Gage Nagy on his success from last year, from week 6. Our week 7 schedule, we have the Buckeye Bucks traveling to Byers Field to take on the Normandy Invaders. Some computer points will be on the line there, with each team having at least 4 wins. Parma will travel to Lakewood. They will take on the Rangers at First Federal Stadium. Valley Forge will take on Holy Name. This game will be played at North Royalton. It looks like that game will be played on Saturday. Tell you what, that's going to be a lot of points going to be in that game, and that's going to be a great battle. For one, it's a public and private school Parma battle, but it's also going to, we'll see if Holy Name can hang on and keep their undefeated streak going within conference play to set up a battle with Buckeye for that East Conference title to get into that championship game. On the west side, we have Bay Village will be traveling to North Olmsted. So we'll see Bay and Brendan Spellman against North Olmsted and Jared Kelly and Xavier Balson. Rocky River will travel to Fairview for a 2-4 and 1-5 matchup. They're backyard rivals, so that'll be a very good game there as well. And then Westlake will travel to Elyria Catholic to wrap up that part of the conference. So that is what we have going for the Great Lakes Conference. And tell you what, we're starting to really get into the heat of the battle here with not only the conference standings, but also the playoff seedings as well. So the Great Lakes Conference right now, it's shaping up. We're looking at, I would say, Buckeye, Valley Forge, and Holy Name are your top 3. Buckeye already has a victory over Valley Forge this year. And then North Olmsted and Elyria Catholic seem to be on a collision course in the West Division. That's going to be a very high-scoring game. Trying to handicap the over-under, I'd say it's at least 90. And it's not because the defenses aren't good. I just believe that highly in the offenses. So that's what we got for the Great Lakes Conference. We are awaiting our guest, Rocco Conti, and it looks like he's popping in right now. There he is. We're lucky to have Olmsted Falls senior running back. As a junior, he was a Division II first team All Ohio running back. He's got accolades for days, and he is currently doing some serious work for the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. Rocco Conti joins us today. Rocco, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you.
Absolutely. But thanks for coming on. Rocco, what a great you guys have started out. You individually have had a great season to start. So talk a little bit about how in your eyes, so how's the season been going for you guys, and as you're gearing up for a pretty big battle coming up here.
Definitely. I think the season's been going pretty good right now. 5-1. We had that tough week 1 loss to Chardon, but they're a very good team. It was a grinded out kind of game. It was a fast game too. We're both same kind of teams, I guess, but they're very good. And last week obviously was a battle too. Elyria is a very good team, and kind of like another grinded out kind of game. But I don't know, we're pretty good this year. So
Rocco, two-time guest joining us. You joined us last year. It was an awesome interview, so we appreciate you coming back on this year. Rocco, coming into your senior year, I was curious as to, for yourself personally, if you had any goals for yourself. And thus far, we are already halfway past, the midway point of the season. How are your goals? Are they maintained? Have they changed? What kind of goals have you set for yourself early in the year, and what's to come for yourself?
I think one of the biggest goals that I wanted this year is we want to win I want to win the conference too, in football. I mean, so far we're doing pretty well with that. Just got to continue that as the weeks go on. And then just, make another deep run in the playoffs. We want to go farther than we did last year and just continue on that. And then, personal goal myself, I'd like to play football in college. So, yeah.
Rocco, can't thank you enough for taking time. I know, obviously, it's a busy week with who we got scheduled. Wanted to see if you could shout out, every good running back's got to run behind somebody. You want to shout out some of your guys on the front line paving the way for you, your quarterbacks, and your receivers, giving you the blocks to spring in those big runs?
Definitely. Our receivers are blocking their butts off. Gavin Moore, we got Andy Herzog, Fred Hepnick, he gets in there too. Milo Murray, those are the receivers. And then obviously we've got Big Dom Rivera, the right tackle. He's awesome to run behind. And we got Danny Reiser, and we've got Colin Simon too, our center. We got Luke Ventimiglia, he's awesome. Andy Boyson, that's another solid piece. He's our left tackle. And then we got Joey Guess. He's rotated in there a little bit too. He's awesome too. So I mean, all those guys are huge. They're monsters. They get after it every week. So I mean, I wouldn't have the success on the field I do without all those guys. So.
Yeah, and you're having another amazing season, Rocco. You know, thanks for joining us. And what's it been like so far this year for you being a leader on the team? You know, obviously you play on the offensive side of the ball. You know, you're my SWC Player of the Week this week with 168 yards. You scored 3 touchdowns, but you also play defense. So what's it been like playing both sides of the ball and being a leader on the team? Because last year you had a really big impact too as a junior. This year you're a senior, and you probably even have more leadership to take some of the young kids under your wing now.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's been fun playing defense. Last year, I played defense in a couple games, just kind of rotated in a little bit. But I don't know, this year it's a lot of fun. Like goes back to I guess my middle school days when I would play defense and stuff. But I don't know, I enjoy it a lot. It's a lot of fun. We've got a very good defense this year too. Everyone's solid. I don't know, it's pretty fun.
We're talking with Olmsted Falls running back senior Rocco Conti. Also on the defensive end, let's touch a little bit more about that. You know, with you taking more of an active role in the defense now, how do you balance that out as far as making sure that you're good to go on both sides of the ball?
I think just Coach Luca does a nice job in practice, making sure we're well conditioned and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think in practice, like making sure we're well conditioned helps us out for sure. And in the game, I think there's a lot of guys that go both ways too, and everyone seems to manage.
Rocco, I mean, let's get to it. You got the big one. You got one of the big ones. You know, your guys' schedule sets up in such a way that really, you guys are in the driver's seat for the Southwestern Conference if it's there for your taking. Without giving too much away, without talking about it, or without telling the trade secrets, you guys play Avon this week, and Avon is one of the top tier teams in the area. So are you guys. You know, there's not a lot of surprises. Obviously, you guys have played them enough to know what they do. What are some of the key things you guys are going to really focus on this week in practice as you prepare for a team like Avon?
I don't know. Obviously, they're a very good team. We're all looking forward to this game. It's going to be a very fun environment and stuff, but obviously they've got that very good running back in the back. I think it's Jacorian Caffey. He's very, very good, so we're trying to stop him. They've also got, I think it's Gavin Earnhardt. He's their other running back, so just, I guess, try to stop their ground game because they're pretty good. And they got that big tackle, too, who kind of leads the way for those guys. So I guess try to stop the ground game. One of our keys to success, I guess.
So Rocco, I'm curious because he's been a little disappointed with us as a show, Sports on Tap, and that's Coach Pace.
Yeah.
How is he? I mean, are you as intimidated by him as we are? Because we got to get out to a game. Unfortunately, we were going to cover 2 of your games this year. I was going to go, and then Sean was going to go. We both got hit with COVID that week. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But, what's it like, you're on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, playing for a coach like Coach Pace, who's very intense, very animated. I'm surprised that man still has a voice. How is it playing for a guy like that?
He's awesome. I mean, he brings the energy every single day at practice. He's always, if you're doing something wrong, he's getting on you, but if you're doing something right, he's giving you high praise and stuff. One thing he did want me to show you guys is we've got this WWE little belt right here. It's it's for the defensive player of the game. Gets to wear this around school and around whatever they want to do. Bring it out to practice and stuff. So we have that goes around the team week to week, whoever the defensive player of the game. He wanted me to shout the defensive belt out. So
does that mean you were defensive player of the week if you had it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Nice. I like that. That's cool, man.
We gotta step our player of the week stuff up now, guys. I mean,
Holy
Coach
cow,
Pace is
man.
lapping us right now. That's a nice looking belt.
Yeah, we might
Yeah,
have.
it's legit. It's legit.
So do you walk around school with that belt? Like, if you get it, do guys walk around school, with that belt, kind of like, I'm kind of a big deal, wearing the huge. I mean, that thing's probably pretty heavy too.
It definitely is. It's like this is real metal on here too. It's a solid belt, but some of the guys will wear it around school and stuff. But on Friday, you got to wear it on school. Like this coming Friday, I'll wear it to school against when we're playing. We got our jerseys on and stuff on Friday, but yeah. We got to wear it around school, kind of show it off a little bit, but yeah.
Actually,
cool.
Rocco, you have to forget Rob. It actually looks like our fantasy football championship belt Rob's never had yet.
That's true.
So
Yeah, he hasn't had that yet.
Yeah, I'm the third
waist.
place champion. The
That's
last
fantastic.
like 3-4 years, but yeah,
That's
unfortunately.
so great for you.
But
and
you know what?
everything.
So far, my season's looking pretty good this year. So
We're 3 weeks in. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Rocco, I do have a question for you. You said you mentioned that you wanted to play football in college. Are there any other sports that you play outside of football? Any other sports for Olmsted Falls?
I don't know if I hear him.
I think we
yeah,
lost him.
Rocco, I think we lost your audio.
Okay. You guys hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Better.
I play lacrosse at Olmsted Falls.
Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, does that help with your football skills, or will it translate or football to lacrosse? Because I know I think lacrosse has gotten to be bigger and bigger every year, and each high school now it seems like has lacrosse. So do you see it translating from, say, football to lacrosse and lacrosse to football and like that?
I think it definitely does, especially like me as a running back. When you're playing lacrosse, you're dodging down the alley or whatever. Same kind of movement, same kind of jukes and stuff. So I think it definitely helps and definitely translates to the football field. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Have you been playing lacrosse for a while, or is it a sport you just recently picked up?
I've been playing for a while. I think since like second grade or something. So we've got a good program at Olmsted Falls, a good youth program and stuff that helps with all the kids. But, yeah.
What do you have any? You put together an all Ohio season last year as a junior, which is certainly a tremendous accomplishment. Has there been any colleges that that have sent you letters, or that are really kind of that have been scouting you hard?
Yeah, I've got an offer from Mercyhurst. I've got an offer from St. Francis. I've got an offer from yeah.
That's awesome. That's a tremendous accomplishment. I mean, being able to play at the next level, not a whole lot of student athletes get to do that. So, certainly you're certainly well on your way to getting there. With being that you are with your Rob touched on it a little bit earlier, from a leadership standpoint, because of the season you had, we had such a great season last year, and now you are a senior. What kind of stuff do you do with the younger guys to kind of get them up to speed, or kind of get them, have you taken on more of that role to the younger players?
Yeah, definitely I have. I guess in practice, I just try to make sure everyone knows what they're doing and they're not scared to ask questions or anything like that if they don't know what's going on or they're confused on some certain play or whatever. But I just try to be as uplifting as I can with the young kids and just try to teach them as much as I can too.
Is that are you guys able to, as seniors too? Do you guys interact with the lower levels of the Olmsted Falls football program as well?
Yeah. Are you talking about like the youth programs and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely do. We went to a couple practices and stuff. Coach Pace was at the one practice, but we I don't know. Yeah, we'll go to their practice and stuff. Talk with the little kids a little bit. I know some of the seniors and some of the captains are going to one of our 8th grade practices on Thursday. So yeah, we definitely communicate with those kids, try to get in front of them, show our face a little bit. So
I can tell you that as we were even when we were growing up in the 90s, goodness, can't believe it's, oh boy. Anyways, when we grew up in the 90s,
Ed, there's no championship belt for that. Sorry.
No,
there's not. Just speaking on the impact, though, like when we were in the youth programs, even through the middle school programs, I mean, the impact that the seniors had on us when we were growing up was massive. So the fact that you guys are taking on that role and really, engaging with the youth that makes an impact more than you guys realize. And certainly doesn't hurt that you guys are a very highly successful program as well. So that's fantastic on your guys' part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, Rocco, have you signed autographs for the little kids and taken pictures and stuff? I know that's we've had some kids or some student athletes come on our show and say, with the youth program, they've been asked to sign autographs or pictures in it, and I mean it's pretty cool. I think that they look up to you. Josh, I mean he used to sign all kinds of autographs. I mean he still is. But Rocco, have you signed any autographs or taken pictures with some of these kids?
I think there was one I signed the football for this one younger kid. And then after the games, I've had some kids come up to me. I've taken a picture with them, so it is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, it's certainly well deserved, I can tell you that. And Josh, just so you know, I never got my autograph, and I'd like to have my autograph. I don't want to bring it up now, but you're supposed to sign.
You know what? I actually did sign one autograph in high school on a baseball.
Yeah. To your grandma, it doesn't count.
Still counts.
Well,
no.
Well, Rocco, I want to, on behalf of us, I wanted to wish you the best of luck this Friday. You got a big one coming up against Avon. We'll be following it for sure. You may even see one of us clomping up and down the sidelines trying to get pictures. So if you see us, don't run me over, or don't run us over when you run into the end zone. It's almost happened a couple of times. We'll try and dodge you, but again, we're older men. We're not as limber as we used to be. So
throw an elbow, Rocco. Throw an elbow.
Speak for yourself.
Make sure you give Sean an autograph too. I think you would really like.
Yeah.
Why not?
Or
somebody's got to.
Maybe take a picture, a selfie, after the TV.
Rocco, thank you for playing along for the last couple of minutes of that farce. But Rocco, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck to you this week against Avon for the rest of your season, rest of your senior year. We look forward to following you, and hopefully we'll get you back on near the end of the year.
Sure, yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
No problem.
Take care,
Thanks,
Rocco.
Rocco.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That is a senior running back for the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs, Rocco Conti, joining us on the show. He is a two-time guest of the show. He was a Division II first-team All-Ohio running back last year. I also believe he was Offensive Player of the Year in some form or fashion as well. He's got lots of accolades. It's kind of tough to keep them all straight, and he's well on his way to earning another probably first-team All-Ohio nod. It's certainly a step up in competition coming up this week with Avon, and they got Avon Lake 2 weeks after that, and they got Berea-Midpark in a tough rivalry game. They're right next to each other in the last week of the season as well. So, what a great story, great student athlete for him as well. Now as we mentioned, we were supposed to be at the Elyria Olmsted Falls game. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put a little wrench in that one, but we did have representation officially from Josh Jeffy at the Brunswick Mentor game, unofficially from me as well. There, so I can speak a little bit on that. So, Josh, let's go over the Brunswick Mentor game a little bit.
Yeah, Ed, and feel free to chime in. You probably had a good view from a little higher vantage point from but this game started off really quickly. The opening kickoff, Mentor received it. It was Caleb Poto. He returned the kick 91 yards. On the very next play, Scotty Fox, hit the first of his 5 touchdown passes. But Brunswick was real quick to answer back in this one. After the kickoff, the first play from scrimmage, it was Ethan I believe the first play, maybe second play. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ethan Roxandich hit Matt Horton for 65 yards with a touchdown pass. And Brunswick, and Mentor were kind of feeling each other out. One thing that I did notice, and Coach Matt Gray mentioned this after the game, was the fact that Brunswick was giving up the short passes. They were not allowing really anything to go deep. And Mentor pretty much decided that the short passing game was going to be how it was. And Scotty Fox did, like I mentioned, had 5 touchdown passes in this game, but they were all from 4 yards or less. They pretty much just marched the ball down the field. This game was kind of tight here in the first half. The 2 scores, as I mentioned, were Ethan Roxandich from 65 yards out. He also had a 2-yard run in this one. And the Brunswick defense was a little stingy there, the Cardinals, in that first half. Landon Case and James Toomey both had interceptions that really shut down some really nice drives that Minter had going. Second half of the game, though, it was a different story. Minter came out and was continuing with the short passes. The one thing that I found it was really questionable was the – yes, Sean, you got one question? Oh, yeah, he's on mute. You're on mute, but that's okay.
You do that every time I say one thing, so I'm doing it to you guys.
Okay, but I don't have a question. I found this questionable, and that was Brunswick attempted a fake punt deep in their own territory, and they were not successful. On that next possession, Minter scored a touchdown. I think that took away a lot of the Brunswick momentum, both on offense and defense. So I thought maybe that, you were only down 2 scores, I believe, in this game at that point, or maybe 1 score. It was 1, and you still were in the game, and I thought that was a little too early to try and attempt that. I get it. It would work. If it worked, great, and you continued your possession, your drive, and perfect, but you didn't. So that's when the questions come out. I thought maybe it was kind of the wrong place, wrong time, but to that point, one quick note also that big-time recruit Notre Dame, Brennan Vernon, did not play the first half of this game. He did come in the second half. Don't know what that was about. I did not ask Coach Gray what that was about, but he did not play the first half of the game. So Brunswick, could they have taken advantage of it? They may have with those 2 scores that they had. But again, in this game, I mentioned earlier that the G&G Fitness Player of the Week nominee in the Greater Cleveland Conference was Jacob Snow. He had 8 receptions in this game for 73 yards and a touchdown. Doesn't seem like a big deal. However, this was his very first game as a wide receiver. He was a starting quarterback last year, got hurt. Scotty Fox had the opportunity to come in and take over that starting job. Then Jacob Snow went primarily on the defensive end as a defensive back, but he stepped in this game, and I thought he played really well as a wide receiver for this one. But again, short passes. Scotty Fox finished the game 32 of 48 for a nice 266 yards. And again, 5 touchdowns, all from 4 yards or less. Minter comes through with a 35-14 victory. They improved to 3-2 on the year. They did not play last week. They had a bye week, and they notched their first conference win. Brunswick drops to 2-4. And they even up their conference record at 1-1. Overall, I thought it was a closer game than initially going into it. I thought it would be. But Ed, like you said, Brunswick always plays Minter tough. And at least for the first half of this game, it was the case.
Josh, I don't think you could overstate the impact that with Vernon not being in the first half. I think that was obviously a big impact. I mean, he's a Notre Dame recruit for a reason. And Brunswick had found some success, especially in the second quarter, of really just running Ethan Roxandich just off the left side. They were attacking that left end, or on the on defense, or on it'd be the right end, but on the offensive side, they were really attacking that left side, and that's how they were able to methodically drive down and score the touchdown, and also get the 2-point conversion to briefly bring the game at a 14-14 tie, and. With Vernon back in the game in the second half, I think I thought about the fake punt too, and I thought that they would just go for it and just line it up and see if Roxandich can get it just from the rip. Like you said, because it didn't work, it's obviously a questionable decision. They saw something that they liked, and it's usually going to be predicated off of a certain call or off of a certain look, and the look was there, and they took a shot, and unfortunately it didn't pan out the way that the Brunswick wanted it to. I agree with you also in that Brunswick definitely did not give him the long ball. They threw a couple of them just to try to see if they can uncourt the top. It didn't work. So I credit Brunswick for the defensive game plan they had. They said they said they weren't going to get beat deep, and they really put it on Scotty Fox to be accurate with his passes. And for the most part, he was. He certainly had some passes that he would like back, but they forced him into what on defense who probably want manageable situations, and it didn't turn out their way. They weren't able to maintain the offensive flow that they had in the second quarter. The quick strike to start. I was walking in and I look at the scoreboard. I'm like, it's 19 seconds in and Mentor's already winning. Okay, this will be fun.
Yeah.
And then like the first, then Brunswick comes right back. I'm like, well, all right, here we go. Like that was fantastic. So great game. I thought it was a good game. And certainly no shame for Brunswick losing to a great team like Mentor. And Mentor's starting to kind of tune themselves up. As you mentioned, they have a tough one coming up next week against the Medina Air Bees. We'll see if they have to go to the Ground Bees portion of their offense, but it'll be that's going to really get it determined. That's probably, we're looking at that as a pseudo de facto conference championship game of the year already, in my opinion. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. We can't forget about Solon as well. Solon plays Medina at week 10, but yeah, you are correct on this one, Ed. This is the big one as of right now, the biggest game of the year in conference play as we see it. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, spoiler alert, I will be there on Friday. I'm going to check out Mentor again. I'm going to see how they're going to go up against the Medina Air Bees. Maybe they'll be the Ground Bees in this one, or maybe they'll be the Tough Bees on defense. So we will see. I'm really working it, Sean, and I see you shaking your head. Don't be embarrassed about it.
I do have an actual question regarding the game, and it comes back to, you mentioned how, Mentor did not play in week 5, and they had essentially 2 weeks to prepare for Brunswick. And given that, did you see any sort of, rust or maybe miscues just from having that week off and not having that ability to play? Or was it simply just Brunswick had a pretty good defensive plan and they were hanging with them until they couldn't?
Well, no, I don't think there was any rust. I think Brunswick's defense is solid. So I think with that extra week of preparation and obviously knowing your opponent, being a conference rival, I think Mentor went in with their game plan of short passes. They barely ran the ball with Mitchell Waite. I believe he just had over 20 yards of rushing. They, like Ed said, they did a couple long shots just to kind of keep Brunswick's defense honest to see if maybe there's a hole in there where they could find. But no, I think their game plan coming in was exactly what the defense was going to give you. What Coach Gray said was, we're going to do what the defense gave us, and those are those short, intermediate, out routes, and it worked really well for them to a tone of 266 yards for Scotty Fox passing the ball. So I think that extra week of preparation really solidified their game plan to what we saw this past Friday.
Now with Scotty Fox, changing, like you said, what's his name, went to wide receiver.
Jacob Snow.
Yeah, Jacob Snow. I mean, he had an impressive game, but on some of the highlights, you see Scotty Fox trying to go deep and got picked twice. Is he still adjusting, coming back to be the quarterback? And now, you're looking at trying to have some players going to different positions. Are they still trying to iron that out? Because realistically, like you said, Brunswick defense was pretty impressive in the first half and held Mentor in check, to 14 points. And Mentor's a high-scoring team that has weapons all over the place, usually a pretty good offensive line and even solid defensively. They've played some really good teams so far this year. And Brunswick, I thought, gave them a little bit of a run for their money. They pulled away at the end there, but I wondered if some of the players changing positions, if they're still learning those positions or kind of getting back in the flow a little bit.
That could be a possibility, but I think one thing we have to remember is that Scotty Fox, along with Ethan Roxandage, Danny Stoddard, Matt Nolan Beard, they're sophomores. They're sophomores quarterback. Or I'm sorry, Danny Stoddard's a junior. But the other three guys are sophomores, and you got a bad all sophomore quarterback, so you're going to have some growing pains. And we think Mentor quarterback, and yeah, they're good. They're highly skilled players, but you still have those periods of growth, and he's still making those decisions. But with the coaching staff that they have, the ability to coach up quarterbacks at Mentor, he's going to be just fine. And I think it shows the type of program that they have. Even with Brunswick, their backup quarterback is now a running back, and he got 70 yards, I believe, on the ground. Don't quote me on that, and I forget, and I apologize. His name escapes me right now, but
Crawford.
Yeah, Crawford. So he's learning a new position essentially as well. But it's all about these programs finding way to get their playmakers, their athletes, in the best spots, and for the kids themselves to be able to kind of check their ego, especially not being a quarterback, which we all know is the most important position, but to kind of check the ego and knowing, hey, I can better the team, better myself and the team if I play here. And these players are proven that they could do it, and they're playing at a high level.
I think that speaks very highly of both Crawford and Snow in that situation. Now, speaking specifically of Snow, it was just 2 years ago when Ian Kipp was not able to play in the state semifinal game for one reason or another. And Jacob Snow was a sophomore, I believe, at the time, and came in cold, basically, and almost helped them win that game.
Right.
And that really provided the springboard to his relatively successful junior year until he got hurt. And then enters Scotty Fox, comes in as a freshman. A tough year, but even freshmen don't play varsity level that much at Mentor. So I think once Coach Gray kind of saw what he had, it's like, okay, well, I have this freshman who is probably going to be really good for us, but I also have this senior who, for one reason or another, he's getting hurt. How do we get both of them on the field at the same time? And being able to utilize Jacob Snow in more than one way, it's a maximization. You're maximizing your talent, and you're maximizing the kids the student athletes' abilities on the field as well. We've seen the same thing at Hoban with Javon Crable. He started the state championship game last year for Hoban. He's playing defense now. Mind you, his dad is Sean Crable, who played at Michigan and played for Patriots, so got a little bit of a pedigree there. But he's been able to do the same thing, to a different extent. So Jacob Snow being able to, I can tell you too. I think Josh, you may agree. I think the kids, his teammates were very happy that of the opportunities that Snow got, and he took advantage of them. So. I think that speaks very highly of Jacob Snow, and also some of the other athletes are doing like Johnny Crawford for Brunswick as well. So that's.
I'm dying to know who is our player of the week. I need to know. I've waited with bated breath. Tell me.
Okay, well,
let's set the stage, Josh, and then we'll get the drum roll going.
Okay, well, just to recap our week six G&G Fitness nominees for Player of the Week: Rocco Conti, interviewed just earlier today, of Olmsted Falls; Jacob Snow, a Mentor; Gage Nagy, a Buckeye; and Will Stacks of Wadsworth. We had a total of 225 votes, and with 47.6% of the votes, it goes to GGC member Jacob Snow.
Oh,
Rocco
come
Conti.
on.
Rocco Conti finishes in second place, 41.8%.
Oh.
Hey, well, congratulations to the nominees, and thanks everyone for voting. Let's get Buckeye and Wadsworth on the train a little bit. They're kind of let their guys down, but the Mentor and Olmsted Falls faithful came through. We appreciate everyone from voting. Again, you get nothing. I mean, no T-shirts, no popcorn, no nothing, but you just get you just get a cool mention. And just to kind of give, hey, there's our Zoom Minute email.
Oh boy.
No, you just get.
Oh no!
No!
Oh man. No, do you know what?
Come on!
No, but do you know what? The funny thing is, there are coaches that watch this show. I know that. College coaches especially. So if you get on this show, you might make an impact on a college program that is like, wow, I really like what I'm hearing. And you know what? Eventually, we are working on, possibly getting something out there for our Players of the Week, but that might be a surprise for a later time.
But again, we appreciate everyone for voting.
Given that tight breakdown of where Rocco Conti finished versus Snow, guys, I'm going to get yelled at by Pace on Friday night when I'm at Olmsted Falls for the Avon game.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, he's just going to yell at me. and then he's not going to have a voice when he yells at me, so I'm going to have to come in closer, and he's just going to yell at me again.
Well,
That's where I'll be this Friday night, is at the Avon Olmsted Falls game, which I believe is at Olmsted Falls. So
Yeah.
we're going to get there.
Yeah, we already gave it away. So real quick, our featured games. Sean is going to be traveling to Olmsted Falls for that big SWC matchup, Avon against Olmsted Falls. I'll be traveling to Medina for a big GCC matchup. Once again, I'll be seeing the Minter Cardinals, but they will be taking on the Medina Air Bees. It doesn't. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work.
Wow.
It doesn't seem to work as well there.
No, I'm sorry.
But actually, that's your own spin on it. I like it. Continue that, because I do the Bees of Brexville.
Thank you.
All right, so you guys know where we're at next week. So we'll be at Mentor in Medina, and we will be Olmsted Falls versus Avon. So make sure you follow us at SOT Podcast on our Twitter page. Get the live updates from both Sean and Josh at those games. Make sure you're following us. Check out our website, sportsontappodcast.com, to get your schedules. Everything we went over tonight will be on the website later this week. All right, that's without further ado. Let's get to the Power 10 for it's our third week of the Power 10. I'm going to make sure I get this presentation the way we want it.
The Power 10 with Ed Dick.
I hope it goes well, because this show has been a train wreck with technical difficulties today. So hopefully it goes well.
This Power 10 has legitimately derailed this podcast.
All right, I think we're good, right?
Yep.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's on the screen right now. The Power
Perfect.
10 logo.
Here is who is on the bubble coming up this week. And we had a little bit of movement here. Benner, Talmadge, and Aurora. So right now, if you're looking, Aurora would be number 11. Talmadge is number 12. And Mentor is number 13. Let me explain why Mentor is 13, even though they won last week. They beat a Brunswick team that has not had a whole lot of quality victories themselves. Mentor is a quality program. There's zero question about that. But they will certainly get the chance to prove themselves very efficiently here with a big game against Medina coming up here next week. Talmadge drops out of the top 10, but I didn't want to drop them too far, because they've had a pretty good season up to this point. Right now, their losses are not that bad of losses. Aurora was right on the outside looking into the bubble, so they do get, they're going to get rewarded for beating Talmadge. There's a really, really good game between Aurora and Talmadge. So right now that moves Aurora up just underneath the line of demarcation to get into the top 10. So that's where we are with the bubble teams. Let's get to it. Number 10, we have a newbie in the running here, the Wadsworth Grizzlies. They were on the bubble for a couple of weeks, and their victory over a previously undefeated Nordonian Knights squad gets them into this list right now. Wadsworth's only losses right now are to Medina and Hudson, and both those teams have a combined record of 11-1. Wadsworth has been on the, they've been knocking on the door for a little bit, and they just needed, they needed that victory to push them into the top 10, and that's what they got. So Wadsworth jumps into the top 10 there. Elyria Catholic goes up to number 9. They've continued to remain impressive. They hit a little bit of a soft spot in their schedule at the moment, but they are certainly on a collision course with the with North Olmsted for West Division supremacy in the Great Lakes Conference. So that's going to go a long way determining not only that conference, but some playoff points and potentially some positioning here in the Power 10. Number 8, the Buckeye Bucks, also finding a little bit of a soft point of their schedule with Parma and Normandy, but they will have to play Holy Name before the end of the year, before they get their potential championship contest against either North Olmsted or Elyria Catholic, if I had to guess. And right now, their best win is, oddly enough, a victory over Cloverleaf, who is 5-1 right now. And they're right beneath them in the Region 10 standings in Division 3. So Buckeye, but Buckeye moves up a little bit as well, mostly based off of the loss from Talmadge in week 6. Number 7, going backwards. Nordonia only drops 1 spot here. The reason why is they have good quality wins up to this point. They still carry a pretty good Harbin rating as far as the playoff points are concerned. And Wadsworth has been playing really well. I don't believe they deserve to get punished that much for that loss. Mind you, it was a pretty big loss. But Nordonia's put in a good amount of work to this point. Certainly not enough to drop down to the top into the bottom 10, beneath the bottom 10. They only have 1 loss still, so that's why Nordonia sits there. Finally, number 6, before we get to the top 5, Olmsted Falls moves up. They are now 6, and they have a very, very good opportunity to move up into the top 5. They're on a collision course with Avon this week. So those are so far we have the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What are you guys got any thoughts so far on that?
I personally thought with the way that Wadsworth beat Nordonia and just dominated them and stopped their prolific offense, I'm a little shocked that they're not higher than 10. To be quite honest with you, because if you look at their two losses, it's to 2 teams that are way higher in the rankings. And they beat a team that up until last week was averaging, I think, like 30 some odd points a game. To hold them to 14 and really 14 in junk time and dominate them the way they did. I just think Wadsworth, in my opinion, is probably a little bit better than Elyria Catholic at this point. Maybe not quite to where Buckeye is, given where their win over Cloverleaf. I'll grant you that. But I would say that Nordonia, the way they performed at Wadsworth, I think could have come down a couple too. And that's just where I come out.
I somewhat agree. Seeing Wadsworth a couple weeks ago live and how they played Hudson pretty tough. I could see them. I could see them being a little higher than they are, but it's from Ed's point of view. It's tough to put a two-loss team. Granted, their losses are to really tough teams ahead of Elyria Catholic and Buckeye, but it'll play out. We'll see what happens this week.
Who was Aurora's 1 loss? Because they're a 5-1 bubble team that I thought, they get a good win against Talmadge, and I thought they've had a pretty good year so far.
Their loss is to Riverside, and Riverside has turned out to be a very good team. Okay. So Aurora's wins up until this point, before beating Talmadge, have not been terribly impressive from a point standpoint. They haven't defeated a whole lot of teams that have that good of records.
Okay.
Which is why they are where they are.
Yeah.
Guys,
well, if that goes into effect, then Menor beat Riverside, so Menor should be above Aurora on the bubble.
We're not doing that.
Ed's head will explode.
Yeah. No kidding. If it hasn't already.
No, and I understand. And again, I want to point out that Ed does a great job putting these together, and they all have legitimate. But just given the way that, and my only thing was given the way that, a couple bounces of the ball the week before, Wadsworth could have beaten easily. I could have seen Wadsworth beating Hudson. I mean, Josh, you were there. It was a hard-fought contest between Wadsworth and Hudson, and had a couple things gone their way, they would be there. But the way that Nordonia was just rolling through people, and then to run into Wadsworth and really not be able to get anything going from that, it just – and again, it's a fluid situation, but I think the problem with Wadsworth is they're running out of opportunities to really impress. Does that make sense? There's not a lot left for them win-wise in the national division, because Stowe is not what it should be. North Royalton is what it is. And I think, obviously, had they made hay when they could have and beat Hudson and beat Nordonia, they'd be much higher, and I get that. But I just kind of feel like Wadsworth is a sneaky good team that I would place probably ahead of Elyria Catholic and Buckeye, who in all respects are the 2, premier, with the exception of where we don't really kind of know where North Olmsted is until they play each other. But they're the premier, Great Lakes Conference teams, and it's fair. But Wadsworth is just a really well coached team, and kind of had a run of bad luck, and then just really impressed me with the way they beat Nordonia last week.
Listen, they're gonna have a good stab at. They're gonna have a good look at a good team against Austintown Fitch coming up.
Yeah,
that's a 5-1 team. That's a ranked Division II team that played Massillon very tough this past week. And I think Austintown plays
Solon.
They play Solon this week. So
I'm sorry, Strongsville. They play Strongsville.
Austintown. Well, I think Strongsville's going to give them a game, but I think Austintown will probably win that one. So that's going to set up Wadsworth really nicely there to potentially get a big win there. It's a razor thin line between Wadsworth, Elyria Catholic, and Buckeye. I don't disagree with you with that. In fact, if you look at the Harbin points, Wadsworth is slightly ahead of both Buckeye and Elyria Catholic. Elyria Catholic's only loss is to a 5-1 Sandusky Perkins team, and that was in overtime. Right. Buckeye's only loss is to North Olmsted, which at the time was 1-2, and they suffered a couple of, I want to say bad losses, but losses would probably. I mean, Green's a good team. North Ridgeville, that's probably one they want to have back. But North Olmsted is on quite a roll of which we haven't seen them on in quite a while. And I think that's proven to be a decent loss. But, it's your points are well taken, believe me. It was tough. It wasn't easy dropping Talmadge down because they played a very, very good game against Aurora. Aurora, right now that's their best win, and that was the reason why that I don't have Aurora higher, because their wins are over an 0-6, a 1-5, a 2-4, a 1-5, and then a 4-2. So that's why Aurora's still on the outside looking in. Talmadge was their first quality win. Roosevelt, they'll beat them, and then Barberton will probably be tough. Highland, that's the big one. That's the big fish that's still out there that they get to hunt. So it's certainly, we all know what's going to happen in the coming weeks anyway. So it's a lot of these teams are going to start playing each other anyway. So I think it's going to shake out just fine. So good discussion there. We'll quickly move into the top 5. Honestly, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. Avon Lake, Medina, Hudson, Avon, and Highland. The same top 5 teams are still the same top 5 teams. They have not lost since we did these rankings. In fact, these teams have looked very good in their wins, and now you're going to start seeing some shakeups. So number 6 plays number 2. Avon's going to get a crack at Olmsted Falls later in the year. Medina's going to play Mentor, which Mentor is capable of beating all of these teams that are on this list. I'm not disputing that at all. Hudson has, Hudson's done some work, but they still got they're playing. I believe they're playing Nordonia this week, right?
Yes.
So you have a 7-3 matchup there. Highland is going to probably be going to go their way until they play Aurora, but Highland's also not taking any prisoners, and they've certainly merited and have cemented their number 1 status, in my opinion, in this standings. Highland is I believe they are number 1 in the Harbin ratings. They have the most points, computer points, than anybody on this list. And for that reason, that's one of the reasons why they're number 1. Avon is right behind them, though. Which is another reason why they're slightly there. I would venture. You can make an argument that if Avon had beaten Glenville, those might be flipped.
But it's got to be so thin at this point. Even if we're playing devil's advocate, even if they're both undefeated at this point, like you mentioned, we're talking 1A and 1A at that point, because those two teams. What's interesting to me is I think we're going to see if Olmsted Falls. My question to you, Ed, is how high do you rank? Let's assume Olmsted Falls beats Avon this week. how huge of a win is that in your opinion? And again, because again, Nordonia lost pretty badly to Wadsworth. It didn't really fall that much. Wadsworth got a big jump from the bubble. I think they were the second one on the bubble last week, if I remember correctly, and now they're number 10. How much of a jump would you give Olmsted Falls over with a win over an Avon team? Because that really, allows the table to be set for Olmsted Falls to essentially hopefully run it. When you think about their only real landmine coming up would be Avon Lake.
Olmsted Falls will jump up significantly. I'll tell you. I'll spoiler alert. If Olmsted Falls wins and Avon Lake wins, Olmsted Falls will jump Avon Lake. I'll tell you that right now. Avon Lake plays an 0-6 Amherst team, and they may win by 100. But it's if we're talking quality wins, that's going to trump whatever Avon Lake has done up to this point. And Avon Lake they've already lost to Avon this year. So, if you got head to head, and now you have common opponent, and to where you're all in the same conference playing each other, that's going to be worth something there. Medina potentially could be safe because they're going to be playing a Menor team that, as well as number 13 in our rankings, they're universally regarded as a top team in the area. But we'll see how that game goes. Hudson and Nordonia, that's a 3-7 matchup. Those are two quality opponents going on there. If Nordonia wins, that's going to throw a major wrench into things.
Yeah.
And if Nordonia happens to lose that game, that could knock them out in lieu of teams that take care of their business and get quality wins.
I would definitely think that if a Menor gets a big win over Medina this week,
yep.
The sky's the limit for them.
Not
but again,
in the bubble anymore. Not in the bubble anymore if that happens.
Not anymore.
Right.
And again, a question that I would have is, where do you project a North Olmsted team? I mean, I know they have the losses, the early losses, and they're not great losses. But I guess my question is that, are they the Aurora of this week? They're on the outside of the bubble looking in, or are they much further down your rankings?
Right now, I believe I have them at. Let me look that up real quick. I thought I had it up. They're at number 16 right now, right behind North Ridgeville and Solon. Now, the only reason they are behind North Ridgeville is that they lost to North Ridgeville early in the season. However, that will not hold much more weight because North Ridgeville, I think North Ridgeville is starting to come back down to earth a little bit there. They do have 3 good wins right now. The Normandy win is okay at the moment, but Normandy is also being blown out by some of the better teams, just like North Ridgeville has been blown out by some of the better teams in their conference. So given where North Olmsted is at and how they're playing right now, they will most likely jump North Ridgeville unless something weird happens. Valley Forge is also trending that way as well. Valley Forge is right beneath North Olmsted. For the same reasons that North Ridgeville currently has head-to-head wins over both of those teams. But if you're looking at the trajectory of the seasons right now, North Olmsted and Valley Forge are trending up. North Ridgeville is trending down, and it's not going to be much longer before that head-to-head victory doesn't hold much weight.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I mean, this is the Power 10 for week 6. Ed, you did a great job here. We always love having the conversation for sure. It's and one thing to mention, it's a fluid situation. It's why they play the games, and we're just putting our opinions out. And again, it's not meant to be the definitive list of the area because we're not including, you're saying Nacious, you're saying Ed's, other leagues in there. It's the leagues we cover. It's what we talk about. So if you have an opinion, shout it out to us. We will listen. Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. But, we're always willing to take on opinions, I guess. But it's definitely shaping up to be a pretty raucous end of the season here. We got some really good games coming up this week. Potential for next week. Week 9, week 10 have good games set. So it's nothing set in stone yet. And I think what we're going to have to really start paying attention to, like Ed mentioned on the top of the show, is the seedings in the particular regions, because a lot of these teams pretty much are going to cement their ability to host at least a first round game, if not a second round game, if they make it that far. Because a lot of these teams, especially the top end of our Power 10, are in the top end of those region point wise per Joe Idle. So that's kind of where we go from there, and we'll be back to break down all the fun action next week, right, guys?
Right.
That's right.
Week seven is fast approaching, and as Sean mentioned, we'll start getting into the playoff seedings as well, in addition to our Power 10. Make sure you stay tuned to find out who our next player that we will be joining, that we'll have on our show. We will have another G&G Fitness Equipment Player of the Week contest, as we normally do. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. As Sean would like to say, smash that notification button. Get those notifications. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel first. Get the notifications, and make sure you're watching us as we do our shows. You follow us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Again, we will be at Mender against Medina and Avon against Olmsted Falls this coming week. Both the guys that are covering those games have just recently received COVID, so we are pretty confident that they will not get it a third time. And
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So Coach Pace can take out his frustrations on Sean for us not being there.
And Coach Pace, if you would be so mind, is to just let maybe Sean wear the belt, because he's not going to win it in our fantasy football league either.
You lie. Listen to you and your nonsense. You need to stop.
For our so make sure you're following us at SOT Podcast there. Scores, schedules, standings will be on our website, sportsandtappodcast.com. One more time, our sponsors are Ray Felton Insurance, State Farm Insurance in Hudson, Ohio, Bandwagon Fantasy Sports, RRT Productions, GV Artwork from gvartwork.com, and also G&G Fitness Equipment, livefit.com at G&G Fitness EQ. All right, for Rob Troutman, Josh Jeffy, and Sean Duffy, I am Ed Dick. This is Sports on Tap. We will see you on the other side.
Omaha!